An elite Yamam counterterrorism officer, Arnon Zamora, aged 36, was honored today after succumbing to wounds sustained during yesterday's daring hostage rescue in Gaza. The operation, which successfully freed 4 Israeli hostages, saw intense combat. ILTV's editor-in-chief Maayan Hoffman has the full story.
An elite Yamam counterterrorism officer, Arnon Zamora, 36, was laid to rest today after being critically wounded in a hostage rescue operation in the central Gaza Strip, which brought 4 Israeli hostages back home. Zamora is survived by his wife and 2 children. A major gun battle erupted Saturday during the extraction of Noah Argamani, 26, Almog Meirjan, 21, Andrei Koslov, 27, and Shlomi Ziv, 41, from the Gaza Strip. Zamora's vehicle came under fire. Forces quickly reached the scene to rescue him and the hostages, bringing them to a makeshift helipad in Gaza. Zamora was evacuated to a hospital in Israel in critical condition and succumbed to his wounds a short while later. The name of the hostage rescue operation was named Operation Arnon in his memory. On Saturday morning, the Israel Defense Forces, Shin Bet Security Agency, and Israel Police executed a high-risk operation, rescuing 4 hostages from Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The mission took place in broad daylight in an area where Israeli forces had not previously operated. The IDF had planned the operations for weeks, it said. At 11 a.m., Yamam and Shin Bet officers were ordered to raid 2 buildings in Nuseirat, where the hostages were held. The buildings were 200 meters apart, and the simultaneous raids aimed to prevent Hamas from killing the hostages once the rescue began, Israeli media reported. Argamani was held alone by Hamas guards in a Palestinian family's home, while the other 3 hostages were held in a different house, also with guards. Argamani's rescue was relatively smooth, the IDF said, but a gun battle occurred at the second location, where Meirjan, Koslov, and Ziv were being held. Hamas's media office reported that at least 210 people were killed during the operation. The IDF admitted to civilian casualties, but blamed Hamas for using hostages and fighting in densely populated areas. We know of about 100 Palestinian casualties. I don't know how many of them are terrorists, said IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari in a briefing, as reported by Reuters. This was the 3rd successful operation in 246 days since the Hamas-led attack on October 7th. World leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron, praised the IDF's rescue operation. However, others condemned Israel for the high civilian casualties on the Palestinian side. European Union Foreign Minister Joseph Borrell called it, quote, another massacre of civilians, and demanded an end to the violence. Norway's Deputy Foreign Minister also strongly criticized Israel and called for a ceasefire. Egypt, too, condemned the attacks, citing violations of international law. Even as Israel celebrates the rescue of these hostages, Hamas still holds 116 of our people in its captivity.
And joining us now in the studio with more on the incredible hostage rescue is ILTV's editor-in-chief, Maayan Hoffman. Maayan, it was such a joyful day yesterday. You know, can you share with us what you were feeling, what so many Israelis were feeling when they heard this news?
Yeah, Lidar, I definitely can share that with you. As somebody who's been working in this field for a long time and covering this war from the beginning, to be able to watch those hostages come home yesterday, get off those helicopters and return home was an amazing, enthralling, and joyful experience, as much as it was also sad because it was only 4 and there are still 116 hostages in Gaza. It was honestly overwhelming, and it was also a piece of relief and hope that the Israeli people need so badly. I'll tell you this, there hasn't been that much joy since February when we rescued 2 male hostages. We had 1 other female hostage rescued, and that's really been it. And over the last several months, it's been quite disconcerting. When the Prime Minister set out to this war, he set 2 goals. Goal number 1 was to destroy Hamas politically, militarily, so they can no longer rule Gaza. The other goal was to be able to bring these hostages home. But the reality is that if we follow what's going on in Gaza, well, we've had many experts here at ILTV who have told us we're winning tactically, we're doing a great job. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't feel like that. And what we know is that when the IDF goes into one area and moves on many times, these Hamas terrorists are going back. And when they go back, they strengthen themselves, they recruit others. And that means that Hamas is still effectively ruling Gaza. On the other hand, over the last several weeks, as we've seen hostages, quote unquote, coming out of Gaza, but they're not their bodies, they're dead hostages. And was starting to feel at least like too many dead hostages were coming out. So yesterday, when I watched their faces, leave those helicopters and reunite in joy with their families, I was able to breathe a sigh of relief. And I think it was a collective sigh of relief for all of the state of Israel. It's a message to us that our prayers can be answered, that these hostages can come home, and that Israel can and will be victorious in the battle against Hamas in Gaza.
Thank you, Maayan. What a powerful message of hope. And with that, I would like to introduce our first interview on this subject. Please welcome expert negotiator Moti Cristal. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lidar.
So I want to take a moment first to really acknowledge the remarkable operation to rescue the 4 hostages. But Mati, there was a ceasefire hostage deal on the table, and now Hamas is mad. What could be the impact of this rescue operation on that potential deal?
Well, I would be more cautious than calling it mad. Hamas decision-making processes are very rational, based on their rationale, on what they believe, Hamas, and in particular Sinwar, what will make or what will benefit their interests. And their interests are, there's a list of interests that they would like to achieve in any deal or in any future negotiations. They would like to restore control over the Gaza. They would like to secure the safety of the leadership. They would like to have a role in determining how Gaza will look like in the future. They would like to take over the PLO. They would like to strengthen their position in the Arab world. Actually, the last 2 interests are already fulfilled almost to the full. So the prisoners exchange or any hostage exchange is yet another instrument to pursue their interest. So judging what happened yesterday in terms of being happy or being mad, it was, it was a mistake on their behalf. They will, resume some operational lessons learned if they maintain any operational capacities. They will move some of the hostages probably to the underground, to the tunnels, but that will not have a tremendous strategic influence on any deal itself.
But if Israel were to sign a deal, a ceasefire deal, can it trust that Hamas will actually return the hostages? I mean, can we trust a deal that we negotiate with Hamas?
I believe that's a great question. We never trust terrorists. We never trust criminals. Sometimes in hostile divorce negotiations, we don't trust our spouse. However, we manage to reach an agreement with people whom we don't trust. Why? Because it's based on a very careful understanding of the mutual interest and the mutual benefit. So if you ask how we can make sure, how we can guarantee that anything that is agreed will be actually executed, that's a different question. In answering this question, we have international mechanisms of guarantees. Qataris, Egyptian usually are good guarantors for any deal which will be reached. But we usually, in this particular circumstances, we usually don't trust the people with whom we negotiate.
But Mati, how do we even get to a deal? I mean, it's taken very long from November until now even to get a deal on the table that both parties are considering. Why is it taking so long? And do we believe that at some point we actually will achieve some kind of deal?
Well, when you negotiate this type of deals, there are 2 elements. First, identify what we call the negotiation language, the zone of possible agreement, identifying the deal itself. And yet, this is an important but not the only element which required to a successful execution. The second element is what we call political ripeness. At the moment, what we lack actually is the political willingness. As we get the reports, mainly on the Israeli side, but also Sinwar always tries to see how we can benefit more from the deal which is on the table.
All right, Moti Cristal, thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you very much, Linda.
And we are now going to turn to Eyal Calderon, the cousin of hostage Ofer Calderon, who was kidnapped by Hamas to Gaza, along with his children Sahar and Erez, both of whom were released during the November exchange. Ofer remains in Gaza. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So what was it like for you watching the hostages return home this time to know that the IDF managed to rescue them?
So it was a wide range of emotions yesterday that we felt, every family of the hostages' families. We were very joyful to see Shlomi, Andrei, Noah, and Almog. I just the last Saturday stood on the stage in the Kikar Hatufim in Tel Aviv with Orit, Almog's mother, and we just asked each other when will be the moment that they will get to us, and this moment was already moment reached, and I'm very happy for her and for all the others. They are like my brothers, and we are very, very hopeful that it will be the start of the release of all other hostages.
And do you have any information about your cousin? I mean, what is the last update that you've received?
Almost 200 since the 55 day when the last hostages were released. This is the last live hit that we got, and since then nothing.
Eyal, this is Mayani. Can I ask you a question? Are you angry at the country with that being the last update at the Prime Minister? Are you worried that the rescue might put the ceasefire hostage deal at further risk and that this will never come to fruition?
So I want to talk about it. It was a heroic operation, no doubt. But we must understand, I hope that everybody understands, that cannot be the same thing with all the other 120 hostages. There won't be these heroic operations for everybody else. It was like a miracle, and it won't happen again, or maybe it will won't happen again a lot. The best and the only way to get alive, who is alive, back is only by a deal. A deal with very hard and very tough prices, for who want to call it prices. But this is the only way that they will come back to us. And we must understand it. There is not other way, and everybody that say that I'm honored by the IDF, but it's not a way that all the other hostages can bring back, and we must remember it.
And if you could talk to Ofer today, and who knows, maybe he'll hear this, I mean, what would you say to him? What do you want to say to him?
Ofer, I hope that you see our war, our efforts to bring you back to your children, to your loved ones. We are doing everything and we won't stop until we will get you back. You just need to survive. You just need to fight, and we will do the rest. We won't give up, and we are demanding from the Prime Minister and all the people that make decisions to seal the deal, the Netanyahu deal, and as soon as possible, because we saw yesterday, there are alive people there, and we must get in back. They must get released. They are alive, and they must get back to Israel for the future of this country.
All right, Eyal Calderon, thank you so much for joining us today, and we truly hope to see Ofer and the rest of the hostages back home soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And after the daring operation to rescue the 4 hostages, the IDF continued its operations in Gaza on day 247 of the war, eliminating numerous terrorists and terrorist infrastructure, including a missile launching site located in the Islamic University. The details in the following report.
Fierce fighting between the Israel Defense Forces and Hamas terrorists continued throughout Gaza on day 247 of the war. The IDF announced Sunday that Division 98 continued operations in eastern Deir el-Balach and eastern al-Burij after participating in the operation to rescue the 4 hostages just one day earlier. According to the army, during the operation, the forces eliminated numerous terrorists and destroyed terrorist infrastructures. Israeli Air Force fighter jets and aircraft provided aerial cover and also struck numerous terrorist targets in the area, among them armed terrorists who pose an immediate threat to the forces. Meanwhile, in Rafah, fighters of Division 162 continued targeted combat based on intelligence information. The division conducted raids and located a number of additional tunnel shafts, as well as rocket launchers and other weapons stored by Hamas. In a raid on one military structure, weapons included rifles, RPGs, charges, grenades, and other equipment was found. And in the center of the strip, a Hamas terrorist squad opened fire on IDF troops, but was eliminated in an aircraft strike. According to the army, in the last day alone, several rockets were launched from the Islamic University in the south of Gaza City toward IDF forces operating in the central strip. There were no casualties, and the IDF was able to strike the launcher and destroy it.
And in an unprecedented move, the UN has added Israel to their list of shame. This comes 8 months after Israel suffered the worst terror attack in its history on October 7th, and as it is fighting a defensive war to rescue over 120 hostages still being held in captivity by Hamas. ILTV's Rachel Safdie has the details.
Israel has been added to the United Nations list of shame for children's rights violations during wartime. It is the first time Israel has been added to this list alongside terror organizations such as Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. They are joining some of the worst human rights abusers, such as the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Afghanistan, and Russia, that was added last year due to its treatment of children in the war against Ukraine. Israel is believed to be the first democratic country included on the list. While the report will only be officially released next Friday and the UN Security Council will only discuss it on June 26, Israel's ambassador in the UN, Gilad Erdan, had a lot to say on the disgraceful action.
I am utterly shocked and disgusted by this shameful decision of the Secretary General. Courtney, you know that Israel's army is the most moral army in the world. So this immoral decision will only aid the terrorists and reward Hamas. And I have to tell you another thing. The only one who is blacklisted today is the Secretary General, whose decisions since the war started and even before are rewarding terrorists and incentivizing them to use children for terror acts. And now Hamas will continue even more to use schools and hospitals.
And Brianna Joy Gray, who went viral last week and sparked a backlash for rolling her eyes at the sister of one of the Israeli hostages in an interview, was let go from her position at the Hill. And who does she blame for her firing? Not her own unprofessional behavior, but Israel, of course. Far-left U.S. commentator Brianna Joy Gray has been fired from The Hill, where she co-hosted its morning news show, Rising. The decision to remove her came after a video went viral of her rolling her eyes in an interview with Yarden Gonen, the sister of Israeli hostage Romi Gonen, who is still being held by Hamas in Gaza for over 8 months. Throughout the interview, Gray was openly hostile to Yarden, who tries to talk about her sister and spread her story. Yarden then spoke directly to Gray and urged her to believe Israeli women's accounts of sexual assault on October 7th, to which Gray rolled her eyes and abruptly cut her off, ending the interview.
And I really hope that you specifically will believe women when they say that they got hurt.
All right, thanks for joining. Stick around, more Rising coming up next.
Gray took to social media to share the news of her firing and unsurprisingly did not apologize for her behavior or remarks, but rather tried to blame Israel. She said there should be no doubt that The Hill has a clear pattern of suppressing speech, particularly when it's critical of the state of Israel, saying it was only a matter of time before they fired me. Gray served as the former press secretary of U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders during the 2020 election campaign. Since October 7th, she has used her platform to deny the October 7th massacre, raise doubts of survivors' stories of sexual assault, and openly spread Hamas propaganda. Basic humanity and decency is what this is really about. But leave it to Brianna Joy Gray to play the victim and make this about Israel rather than her own unprofessional behavior. And moving on, Khaled al-Shuli, one of the leading lawyers behind the International Criminal Court's drive to issue arrest warrants against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli officials, has had his assets frozen for 6 months by French authorities. The French ministers of the Economy, Finance and Industrial and Digital Sovereignty and the Minister of Interior and Overseas Territories made the decision to freeze his assets this past week. Just last month, the Jewish Chronicle investigation revealed that al-Shuli has defended Hamas's October 7th massacre on an Arabic-language channel, saying the massacre could be justified under international law. According to the investigation, al-Shuli has also played a key role in a case fought on behalf of Hamas in the European Union's court system, which sought to remove its EU designation as a terror group. He was also head of 2 organizations that were sanctioned by the US, Israel, and Australia, specially designated terrorist entities for raising money for Hamas. This revelation casts further doubt on the ICC decision to issue arrest warrants, which Israel has said is a disgrace and attempts to create a twisted and false moral equivalence between leaders of a democratic country and terrorists, adding it will undermine every democracy's right to defend itself against terror and will cast an everlasting mark of shame on the International Court. I wonder if the ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan was aware of this. And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected tonight alongside humid temperatures sitting at lows of about 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, hot conditions continue and clear skies are expected alongside highs of around 32 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our website, iltv.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Ladar Gravelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.